Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Great American Toy and Game Cafe. Today's explainer dives deep into the rulebook of our nation's most complex, highest-stakes tabletop game. I'm talking, of course, about the American electoral system. Now, if you've ever looked at a map and felt like the rules of politics are just totally stacked against you, well, you definitely aren't alone. Today, we're skipping the talking points and looking strictly at the data, the raw math, and the underlying structural rules that define exactly how our votes are counted, weighed, and, as you'll see, sometimes entirely neutralized.
So, before we roll the dice, let's take a quick look at the cafe's menu for tonight. We are going to start with 1. Setting up the board, then move into 2. Packing, cracking, and salamanders. Check the scorecard in 3. The efficiency gap math. See who enforces the rules in 4. The Supreme Court referees. Weigh the pieces in 5. The Electoral College weight. And wrap things up with 6. Changing the game rules.
All right, let's jump right into part 1. Setting up the board. The origin of the manipulated map. Because to understand how a game is rigged, you really have to know who drew the board in the first place, right? To find those origins, we have to look all the way back to 1812. Massachusetts Governor Elbridge Gerry actually signed a bill to redraw state Senate districts specifically to benefit his own political party. The map he came up with created this bizarrely contorted dragon-like district near Boston, and a local newspaper editor joked that it looked like a mythological salamander. Merge his name, Gerry, with salamander and bam, you get gerrymander. It's a term that, for over 2 centuries now, has defined the corruption of our democratic process by manipulating the actual shape of the game board.
Moving right along to Section 2. Packing, cracking, and salamanders, the player tactics. Okay, let's break down the specific tactical moves players use on this board to maximize their own supporters' votes while minimizing their opponents'. The first major tactic is called packing. Imagine you're allowed to organize your opponent's game pieces. With packing, you strategically stuff as many of your opponent's voters as possible into just a few totally unwinnable corners of the board. Because it's a winner-take-all setup, your opponent might win that specific area by a massive margin, say 90% to 10%. But the catch is, every single vote cast for them above the 50% needed to win is essentially a wasted surplus vote. They can't use it to help win anywhere else on the board.
And that brings us to the second companion move, cracking. This is where you divide the remainder of your opponent's pieces across the rest of the board so thinly that they just continually fall short of a majority. By fracturing their base across multiple districts, you ensure they lose consistently by close margins, like 45% to your 55%. When you combine packing and cracking, map drawers can essentially pick their voters rather than the voters picking their representatives. It's wild.
Which leads us to part 3, the efficiency gap math, scoring the game.
So how do we actually score this game and mathematically prove if a board is rigged? Well, let's look at a real-world example from the 2012 Wisconsin legislative elections under what was called the Act 43 map. In this election, the Republican Party claims 61% of the 99 assembly districts. But here's the kicker. They accomplished this despite only winning 48.6% of the statewide two-party vote. A little minority of the popular vote translated into a massive supermajority of the seats. You're probably wondering, how does that even happen?
This brilliantly illustrates what mathematicians call the efficiency gap. Basically, it's a formula that aggregates all of a map's packing and cracking choices by comparing the difference in wasted votes between the two parties. By subtracting the vote margin from the seat margin, we reveal undeserved seat share. In a perfectly fair game, this gap is 0. But here, the math reveals a massive 20% divergence, mathematically proving that one side wasted significantly fewer votes than the other, strictly due to how the district lines were drawn. The game wasn't won by popularity, it was absolutely won by the map.
Now, who is checking this? Let's look at part 4, the Supreme Court referees, whistleblowers on the bench.
Every game needs a referee, right? Over the last decade, challenges to these heavily partisan maps marched all the way up the federal judicial ladder. In 2018, that Wisconsin math we just talked about reached the Supreme Court in Gill v. Whitford, but the court sidestepped the core issue based on technical standing. The defining moment, however, came the very next year, in 2019, with a landmark ruling that reshaped the entire landscape of this board game. In the 2019 case Rucho v. Common Cause, Chief Justice John Roberts delivered the majority opinion. The court actually conceded that partisan gerrymandering is incompatible with democratic principles, but in a definitive 5-4 ruling, they declared that these claims present non-justiciable political questions. Essentially, the highest referees in the land officially stepped off the field, stating that federal courts simply lack the jurisdiction to rule on this specific type of political cheating. And honestly, the fallout from stepping off the field has been intense.
Fast forward to the 2026 Louisiana v. Calais case, where Justice Elena Kagan wrote in her dissent that this hands-off approach essentially invites states to just embark on a new round of partisan manipulation. She described the current political landscape as a literal race to the bottom, where the two major parties compete to rig their state maps without any fear of federal judicial oversight.
Now this brings us to a crucial pivot in our explainer today. While gerrymandering manipulates the shape of the board at the state level, the Electoral College represents a completely different kind of distortion based on size. This is called electoral malappreciation.
Let's dive right into that in Part 5, the Electoral College weighting the pieces.
The Electoral College introduces a structural rule that completely alters the baseline math required to reach that winning 270 threshold. Instead of redrawing the board, this rule changes the fundamental weight of your game pieces. The total number of electors is fixed at 538, and the Constitution guarantees that every single state gets a minimum of 3 electoral votes, 2 representing their senators and at least 1 House representative. This structural rule is so powerful that, fun fact, back in 1889, politicians strategically split the Dakota Territory into 2 states, North and South Dakota, specifically to manufacture extra Senate seats and grab more of these weighted electoral pieces for their party.
So the crucial takeaway here is that this mathematical floor creates a massive imbalance. Because a tiny population still gets an automatic 3 votes, smaller states end up having disproportionately heavier game pieces. In fact, research shows that residents of the smallest states can yield up to 3.312 electoral votes per resident compared to those living in the most populous states. So in this game, the pieces are absolutely not weighted equally.
Which brings us to a really major crossroads. If the Supreme Court has declared gerrymandering a political question they won't touch, and the Electoral College is baked right into the Constitution, how do we prevent the players, meaning the politicians themselves, from permanently rigging the rules in their own favor?
Let's look at Part 6, changing the game rules, House rules, and independent commissions.
Well, the answer is actually bubbling up at the local level. Some states just aren't waiting for the federal referees to step back in. They are proactively establishing new House rules at their own tables to keep the game fair. States like Michigan and Colorado now utilize independent citizen redistricting commissions. It's a structural alternative that takes the map-making pen completely out of the hands of politicians. These commissions are mandated to maintain ethnic, cultural, and demographic communities within single districts whenever possible, and, crucially, their maps are subject to automatic review by the state's Supreme Court, keeping a localized referee on the field to ensure fairness.
So as population shifts continue to alter the Electoral College map, and that mathematical efficiency gap of gerrymandering widens in states without independent commissions, you really have to look at the board and ask yourself a serious question. Are your votes actually changing the outcome? Or was the winner decided the exact moment the board was drawn? It's something every single one of us needs to ask before we take our next turn. Thanks so much for joining me at the cafe today, and I will see you in the next explainer.